Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Training Tuesday, I think this is number 13. Sales order entry tips and tricks for those using Dynamics GP. On the line with us today is 𝗦𝗶𝗶𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗍, who I'll let you introduce yourself and share all the wealth of knowledge in today's training session.
So as Scott said, my name is 𝗦𝗶𝗶𝗀𝗏𝗍𝗍. You guys may have run into me because I'm the support manager here at Endeavor. I've been at Endeavor for 6 and a bit years now. I've been in GP longer than I'd like to admit. So this is my 8th Training Tuesday, so I was starting to miss you guys, so I came back. All right. So for those of you who do lots of entry of sales transactions or navigate around in sales transactions, we're going to talk about a few tips and tricks that can help you through your day, okay? So because, it's such a beautiful day today, I want to start on a fun topic of receiving cash in. If you've ever received some money in and maybe you have a customer that maybe pays you from multiple accounts and you're not sure what account it comes from or where it goes to, in the later versions of GP, they actually created this field here that says locate by document number. So you can actually put in your document number and look up your cash receipts by that document number, and it will tell you which one it actually is, and you can select them, and it will automatically select your customer for you. So if they've told you what invoice you're paying, you can go back and forth and figure out which customer it is instead of, going to a smart list and looking up that document number and then going back and forth and finding it from there. So you can literally locate your customer in reverse by a document number right inside your cash receipt window. Okay? So it's a little handy of a trick if you're maybe not sure which customer it is, or maybe they go by multiple names or they have multiple branches. You can go and quickly find it by the document number that they're paying you. Okay? And then, of course, put in the rest of the information for the check itself, such as our amount and check number, so on and so on. Okay? So that's a little fun, handy trick. It did come out in our later versions of GP. So take a peek to see if you have it. It's an oldie but a goodie trick to use your locate the customer by. Of course, if you're still more comfortable, you can go find that information in a couple different places. Let me just delete this transaction here. Of course, we can always use our smart list, come into our smart list, do a search on our document number, just through our sales and receivables transactions, and literally just do a search on document number. I like to use contains and then put our document number in there and find our customer. Or if you'd rather use the inquiries, you can actually do a transaction by document and use that filter over here and go and find who your customer is. All 3 of these methods work. However, sometimes since you're already in the cash receipts window, instead of leaving and coming back, I like to use this little locate customer by document number. I find it's a little handy of a trick. While we're in the cash receipts window, and I'm going to tell you this little tidbit actually works in every window, not just cash receipts, works in sales transaction entry and transaction entry, and even in your other windows such as purchasing, financial, inventory, all the other ones. When you get to your date function, you can actually use your plus sign, and if you notice, it actually moved it from 0412 to 0413 by using the plus. The more times you hit plus, the more it increases your date, or you can use your minuses as well, okay? So if you're just looking to do yesterday's transactions, you can just use your minus instead of going 04, 06, 2027, whatever the case may be. It will save you some typing if you just use your plus or minus sign. One of the other tricks as well for your dates, you'll notice that my system date in GP is actually set to 04/12/2017. So that's April 12th, 2027. Which is Fabricam's default date, just happened to be in Fabricam. If I put 07 in here and hit tab, it will actually pick up my month and year by default from my system date Okay, I can also not fill in the year if I want. If I wanted to go to May and go 07, sorry, did that in the wrong order, 0507, I can go to May 7th, 2027, and I didn't have to type in the year. It will actually default my year for my system date. The only time this can become a little bit of a hairy is if you're like me, at the first week of January, I always seem to forget what year it is, and you can mix it up a little bit. But you can definitely try and type a little less with using your dates by using your plus and minus keys to go up and down the date, or to just put in the day or day month, and it will pick up the rest from your system date. Okay? And as I said, this actually works in almost every window inside of GP. So I can do it in my cash receipts window. I can do it in my sales transaction entry window, my transaction entry, purchasing, financial, inventory, and pretty much any other window you're putting a date in. I realize I've left out a lot of windows with dates, but if I listed them all off, we would be waiting here a very long time, and Scott might tell me to start to wrap it up a little. All right, while we're sitting here and we're actually in this sales transaction entry window, I'm just going to pull up an invoice here that I already have in. You'll notice it's in my batch called contracts, okay? If you're using batch IDs to move around your orders, your invoices, your back orders, all that kinds of stuff, you may wonder when you hit print, you can actually print your edit list or your batch list. You might say, what's the difference? Don't they tell me the same thing? The answer is no, they actually don't tell you the same thing. An edit list will tell you everything that's ready to be posted with its distributions. So typically in the SOP world, which stands for sales order processing, it's only going to print your invoices that are ready to post with their distributions. If you print your batch list, it's going to print everything that's inside of that batch without distributions. So all of your back orders, your quotes, your invoices, all the mixture you might have in that batch. Okay, so depending on which one you want to see, you can flip between your edit list or your batch list, and they do actually tell you different pieces of information. Now, depending on what you're doing, these can be very helpful. Now, of course, if you're like me and you don't always like to read all the text that's in there, I like to use my edit list to make sure I have no errors upon posting, and I'm not going to have to do the whole batch recovery and go through that little jazz. I actually like to see what's inside my batch from my smart list. It's really either or what you want to do, but I do like to use it inside of here. So I do like to go to my sales transactions and really just put a search on my batch ID. And as a quick tip or trick here, if you don't see the column you're looking for at any time, if you do your little drop down here, you can go to all columns and you can see every column under the sun that's available to you. And I like to put in my batch number. Oops. Apparently I also need to learn how to spell this morning. There we go. Put in our contracts in there, and now you can see all the things that I have inside of here. You can tell that this is just an invoice batch for me. However, it would show you everything inside of here. So our invoices, our orders, our quotes, and everything go with it. Okay? So you always have that option to use either or. However, main thing to remember is edit list will only show you what's ready to be posted along with its distributions, and a batch list will show you absolutely everything inside of the batch. Okay? Now, since we're talking about entering transactions, if we have customers that require to give you a PO number and they can't repeat, you might say to me, well, how the frig am I going to check every single transaction they ever give me to make sure that the PO number that I received this time around doesn't match any other PO I've ever had? There's a nifty handy trick in PSTL. You might say to me, you know what, I watched a webinar in PSTL and I didn't see it in there. That's correct. There's so many PSTL tools that there's not enough time for me to talk about them. But you'll notice that I have this SOP PO number check. And what this allows us to do is actually set a requirement on whether or not we can have duplications of PO numbers and whether those can be on our quotes, our orders, returns, back orders, fulfillments, and so on and so on. Okay, so you'll notice here on my invoice, I say I'm telling it to check if I have a duplicate PO. Okay, I'm telling it to also look in work in history. Okay, and now it tells me what kind of warning type I want. To warn and ask me, so to just warn and tell me, you know what, hey, you have a duplicate PO number, are you okay? Or you can have a warn and reject, where it literally tells you, you have a duplicate PO number, you cannot put this PO number in here. Okay. Or you can use a warn and password, where you say, okay, you know what, you're going to use a duplicate PO number. If you have a password, you can override it. Now, you can set different types based on your order, invoice, return, back order, fulfillment, so on and so on. All this setup is inside your PSTL. Okay, so if you're ever looking to make sure that people for sure put in a PO number or there's no duplicates, go ahead and check out your customer PO setup inside PSTL. So I'm just going to move these side by side here so you can see which one it is. So you'll notice here it's under a SOP PO number check. Okay. Now, as a word of warning, PSTL is an amazing tool. However, it does have some very powerful features in there. So please make sure before you change anything that you have a backup and that you have no one in the system, just so no one, you know, accidentally does something that they shouldn't be doing, and you can always revert back if you would like to. Okay. One of the other cool tricks that we did cover in our previous one, but it is a great one to mention, is the SOP customer item lookup. Okay. This basically allows me that upon entry of an invoice, I can look up every other time they may have purchased this item, okay, just to make us real fun. Okay, so since we're talking about easy ways to get ourselves in sales transactions and how to enter that in there, what happens when your customer actually wants to return that stuff? I know you're going to tell me my customers never return my stuff. They're always 100% satisfied. But in those odd situations, they do happen to create a return. Well, we all know there's a little bit of a long way to do it, where we can go through each line and look it up and go through that. There's actually a quicker step to do this, is to actually flip it to your return type. And if you go to additional, or it might be sitting in your ribbon, depending which ribbon you have, you can actually hit create return. Oops. And, oops, let me turn this side by side. You can actually look it up, and let's pick my credit type here. And you can actually pick it up off of an old sales document number. So I'm going to go pick up my invoice from March and pick the items off of that sales. So it will go ahead and pick them up, especially if you have a lot of items on that list. You can actually pick them all up. Oops, I really need to. Here is my new RMA. So it actually did everything for me. If you're using lot and serial numbers, it will help you out with these lot and serials and pick that information back up. It also nicely ties these together. So you'll notice in my return document, with my little blue expansion arrow next to my document number, you'll actually see the original number inside of here, that where it come from. Okay, so now that we have all this information inside of here, it just allows you to have less keying for your serial number, your lot numbers, or maybe multiple. If they have a very long invoice that returning, maybe they have a lot of little parts on there. That'll help you out to quicken up your return by using your additional function to go create return. Okay. This actually wasn't always a feature inside of GP until after GP 2013, when Extended Pack became more of a basic function inside of GP. Okay. Speaking of quick ways to get information inside of GP, I'm just going to go ahead and delete this return because I'm not actually going to process it, is what happens if a customer says, repeat my order from last week? I just want the same thing I had. You can actually go ahead, pick up your invoice, and if you notice from your from your actions button, you can go ahead and copy it to a new invoice number. can go ahead and copy everything. You can copy the lines, the drop ships, the salesperson, or pick and choose what you want to have. You can actually copy and preview. Oops. You can copy those invoices forward just to help ourselves get where we need to go. You can also copy another customer's order from one to the other. So if you said, oh, they want the same thing, they just want to be twinsies, you can copy one from the other. And that's actually just sitting inside of your actions bar underneath copy. Okay? Now, you can do this for pretty much anything, whether it's an order, a quote, an invoice, whatever you want, you can copy it later on. You can say to me, what if it's already in history? You can still copy it the same way. It will still be there for you. Okay? Now that we've found quick ways to enter in those returns and those invoices, usually we send a paper copy either in the box, or we just want to print paper copies, or maybe we want a mass email because we definitely want to collect that money, so we have to send out those invoices, picking slips, packing slips, whatever might go along with it. Now, if you really want carpal tunnel syndrome, you can go ahead and hit print multiple times in a day, or you can use some of the fun features inside of GP. The first one I'm going to show you for how to print en masse is actually this bulk print. Okay? You can put in your batch ID and then actually use your document statuses or other item numbers to pick which ones to print, and it will print a whole batch for you that hasn't been posted yet. Okay? You can actually pick what you want to print inside of here as well. So if you've never used this function, I'd say try it out. It's a really handy tool to use inside of GP. Okay? If you want to get a little bit more picky about which sales transactions you want to print, you can actually use your navigation list. And it's not just for stock orders you can use your navigation list. You can use this for your receivable transactions as well. So you notice I just used my sales order transactions on the side. And I can either select off by hand which ones I want to print, or I can add a filter. And I can say where the date is. Let's say where my date is 04/12/20. Oops. Oh Lord. 2027 in April 12th. We can put that inside of there. So, oops. Change my year here. 2027. You can put in those filters inside of there. Or you can have no filters and just pick what you want, and you can always order them in which order you want, whether it's by amount or customer. You can type anything you want inside of here and then simply select which ones you want. Okay. You can also, oops, select which ones you want. From here, you can choose what you're going to print. You can print your pick or your pack, or confirm your shipping, print your documents, or send them via email. Okay? You can actually, in this send email function, you can actually send it by email and send a copy to your printer in case you may be emailing and then actually putting an envelope and send them as well, to make double sure that they got your invoices as well. Okay? Now, you might say to me, that's great, I can print all these, I have all these extra buttons over here, what do they do? Navigation lists can do lots of things for you. They can also put hold on customers for you en masse, hold on transactions for you. They can also move things to orders and invoices as well, depending if you're trying to fulfill those orders. Okay? You'll notice that I have some of the same options inside of my receivable transactions as well. I can mass print in here. Okay, so you'll notice I have my sales and invoices. I can go ahead and select them just like I did anywhere else, and I can send an email or print the documents. Okay, one thing to be wary of is when you're printing documents is whether you're printing them in functional or originating. Okay, you might get the wrong payment amount if you're putting it in the wrong currency, especially if you're selling in more than one currency. Okay. Now, it might work out in your favor as well. If they maybe pay you the U.S. amount instead of the Canadian amount, you might work out. Now, you have all these options inside of here as well to use inside your receivables transactions. The way you get out of your navigation list, there's no little X, okay? It is literally just you hopping back into the sales, and it will bring you back to your normal tiled view that you see inside of GP, okay? So you can always mass print from one of two places, or one of three places, sorry, is your navigation lists, your bulk print. You can also print your batches as well. You can hit print and print your information from there as well. Whatever you like, whatever you feel most comfortable, and whatever works for your process the best is what I would suggest. But I will say, go take a peek at them, okay? Now that we've talked about printing, what happens about moving those transactions between orders to invoices or sales orders to invoice? If anyone's ever used the transfer to multiple orders, you can actually move it, transfer your orders into a different batch and choose how you're going to fulfill them if you just want to fulfill all of yesterday's orders to move them through instead of doing them by hand. Okay, so you definitely have that option as well, and it's inside of your transfer multiple orders function. Okay, so don't be scared of it. Go take a peek at it. If you ever want to just see how any of these work, generally most people actually have a test company that's a mirror of their live. If not, you'll always have a 𝗲𝗲𝗀 function or a 𝗲𝗲𝗀 company. This is GP's test company. You can test anything you want in here. I promise you, you won't break anything in test. I've tried my hardest over the last decade to break things in test, and I have still been unsuccessful. So please go ahead and try anything in test. And if you have any questions, always feel free to come ask support as well. Okay. But before we wrap up, I wanted to go through a few navigational tips and tricks that aren't just good for sales. They're good for a little bit of everyone, depending where you're inside of. If you've been seeing my webinars and you really like my menu layout, okay, that is actually inside of your main Microsoft Dynamics GP, and you have a user's preferences. Okay, you actually have a window command bar, and you can change it between the action pane strip, and menu bar, depending which one you like to see. Okay, you can always have that information inside of there. Okay, you also have this autocomplete function. Okay, if any of you can turn this on or off depending on whether or not it drives you crazy or not. And you might say, what is your autocomplete section? That's when you're actually inside of any window and you put something in here once, and when you go to type it again, it starts to tell you it starts to guess what it is you want to type in. However, if you've made a spelling error and then that's no longer what you want anymore, and you've tried things like, and that's not quite what you want, now when I put it in, I have two options and one might be the wrong option. If you don't want to see the wrong option anymore, you can actually right-click it and just remove it from your list so you only see the proper transaction. However, if this function drives you crazy and you don't like the autofill, it's in your user preferences under autocomplete, and you can have it turn on or off. You can also have it removed unused entries. So if you haven't talked about that person in, I don't know, 60 days, and you just want to, you know, take them away from your head for a while, you can actually tell you to remove unused entries after so many days. Okay. And you, of course, you can remove entries as well. If you want to remove all of your autocomplete entries, you can remove those. However, if you're like me, I like to keep them on. I like for GP to try and guess what I'm trying to type. However, I am adventurous. I also like Google to try and guess what I like my playlist as my drive to work. Sometimes she nails it. Sometimes I don't think she knows me at all. So that's where some of those user preferences are. Of course, if you ever need to change your password, it's in here as well. Okay. So that's some funny things. One of your other navigation lists is, I actually like my tiles in a particular order. Some people do, some people don't. Is you can actually just drag and drop these around in whatever order you like. I'm old-fashioned. I like my transactions and inquiry and cards all up at the top. That's just my favorite. That's how I like to see it. However, you also have this customized page up here. Oops, it's kind of hiding on me here. You can pick which tiles you want to see or not see when you use your Customize This page, okay? And that actually works for any of the pages, whether you go to sales or purchasing, you'll see this customized page as well, okay? Now, if you've been watching my webinars and you like how small my bar is at the top, or maybe you want to see more, you can actually always customize this toolbar as well and turn on multiple toolbars as well and move them on in here as well, okay? I'm old-fashioned. I like seeing just transaction inquiry reports cards. As I said, I have maybe spent more years in GP than I like, and prior to tiles, it used to just be these drop-downs. So I like to use the drop-downs still as well, okay? In GP, there's always more than one way to get to anything. Please use whatever feels most comfortable to you, okay? No matter which functionality you're sitting in, whether that's sales or purchasing or financial, whatever you like, okay? Now, and one of the last navigation ones I just wanted to talk to you about is actually inside of our setup here. I'm going to hop inside of here. Is you can actually choose inside of receivables, not a lot of people know this, is whether you want to show your applies, apply by document number or due date. Okay, so you choose which one you actually, if you're using the auto apply function, which one it applies by first, the document number in ascending order, so it goes alphanumeric, or you can have it auto apply by due date. Okay, so for those of you who never used the auto apply function, it's under your apply sales document functionality here, and if you just wanted to apply anything, you can actually use this auto apply and it'll apply down for us and it'll consume everything it can until it's no longer there, okay? You can also unapply en masse and make sure you have nothing there, okay? If you've ever moved your stuff to history and you can no longer unapply it but you still want to apply it, we did cover this, I think in our PSTL, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I might be lying to you. There is a fun PSTL function inside of sales that's called your RM transaction unapply. You can actually move a document out of history and back into open to make sure that you can apply it back. I'm just going to go ahead and pick on my Aaron Fitz here. And we can always unapply things that have been moved to history, okay? Or maybe they got stuck in a batch. So again, contact your system administrator anytime you want to use PSTL. It is a great but very powerful tool, okay? That's inside of there. All right. So, of course, if you have any questions about anything we covered today or in past Tuesday webinars, please feel free to reach out to support@endeavorsolutions.ca. I am going to open it up for the floor and hopefully ask Scott to help me here if there's any questions. There is a chat box inside of the window menu as well. Feel free to put in those questions in here. Scott and I usually hang around for about 5 minutes or so to make sure there's no questions. So I'm going to pass it over to Scott to help me out here and also to do a little bit of the wrap-up as well.
Thank you, Brittany. So definitely that was fantastic, and thanks for going into the deeper dive on some of the navigation aspects. It's always fun for me to watch them, but I'm sure they're great reminders for others on the line. For those that are new to Endeavor, we're into our 30th year supporting Microsoft Dynamics, GP, Business Central now, as well as the CRM components. All of the cloud from Microsoft, including Office 365, now rebranded as Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Azure, Power BI, Power Apps, and a lot of the really cool stuff. 3 lines of business: advisory services, implementation and upgrades, and ongoing optimization and support. We have over 650 clients across Canada and the U.S. and globally throughout the world, and supporting them with our, I think we're up to 49 or 50 staff now. So we're continuing to grow and assist our clients in helping you guys get more out of your Microsoft business applications. Next steps, as Brittany mentioned, feel free to reach out to support@endeavorsolutions.ca for existing clients. You can also reach out to Trish or James or Steve, depending on what you're looking to accomplish. And as always, anyone with an endeavor, feel free to reach out to them, and they will point you in the right direction and help you the best they can. So with that, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day of our next 2 sessions. So from the Endeavor website, contact, and webinars and events. Today was sales order entry tips and tricks. Next Tuesday is going to be GP sales reporting, inquiries, and analysis, also being hosted by Brittany. And then later on this month, we're having a Power BI quick tips and tricks on how to create one. It'll be for Business Central, CRM, and Dynamics GP. I believe the sample data is going to be using GP. So it'll be lots of fun to go from step to step, run a query, create a dashboard, and publish it. So I encourage everyone to return back off to our events page and look for additional sessions that may be of interest to you and your extended team. Brittany, I don't see any of our questions coming through.
Beautiful. They can always reach out at a later time as well.
You got it. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and we'll look forward to seeing you on one of our next Training Tuesdays.
Thanks, Scott.